you have this this shift to, this is a decade ago, it was right when Checkry started, and I wrote about it at the time. You used to be able to buy it Photoshop, and now you had to subscribe to Photoshop, and
Right.
it was
a one-time fee, and then it was a recurring fee,
and there was really no choice in the matter. They're just like, nope, this is the way it is now, which in many respects is like, I wrote in my update, I respect it, right? Like, they went out there and said, like, guess what? The world needs Photoshop and Illustrator and all our other apps, which
this
means
is an essential product.
Yep. So they are going to pay by a subscription, even if they don't like it. And you know what? They were right. And moreover, I think it's okay they were right. I think subscriptions are better for software. Like, we talk a lot about software being a zero marginal cost good, and it is sort of in isolation. But the realities of continual improvement, the realities of sort of maintenance, bug fixes, keeping up with the underlying platforms means that it is zero marginal cost in terms of the end customer, but it's not a fixed cost in terms of investment. You need continuous R&D on any of these products. And there's a bit with a subscription model that better aligns the accrual of revenue with the effort required to build and sort of maintain these apps over time. That's number one. Number two, it's just better from a go-to-market perspective. You can get into Creative Cloud for, what is it, monthly, $90 a month or $80 a month or whatever it is. You can get just Photoshop for like $29 a month or something like that. And then you can cancel and you can get out. Or if you're, that is actually much more approachable than when your choices were pay $500 or pirate a copy, right? They've actually made it easier to do the right thing as far as just trying it out or using it for one project or sort of getting in and out. And then meanwhile, if you use it all the time, it was actually unfair in favor of the customer. I mean, unfair in quotes, but you would pay $500 and you would derive hundreds of thousands of dollars of value out of it, right? The idea that Adobe gets to sort of share in your ongoing profession and work, which is dependent on their tools, to me is a reasonable one. And I get that consumers didn't like that. I think it felt worse because it went from one model to the other. But I think the model's fair, and they were in a market position that they could pull it off. And this whole market position bit is interesting. You have this kind of like, also like a two-sided market where employers expect their employees to know Photoshop, and employees have Photoshop skills that they think are marketable. But it's like, it's not quite a network effect, but it kind of is a network effect that really
sort of is. That's what you were writing about. And it brought me back to my time in law where everybody uses Adobe products. So you have to learn how to use Adobe products. And then also when you're working with, co-counsel at a different law firm, they're using Adobe products. And so it is sort of a network effect. And it's a baseline. Well, look at
you trying to find Microsoft
needs.
Word, right? Like, I mean, it's the same sort of thing.
Exactly. Just searching in the wilderness for a loaned copy of Microsoft Word. But yeah, and I think that's where some of the resentment arises.
For sure.
Everybody feels like they need to pay this. And
they do.
Whenever
that's
Adobe
the thing,
charges,
right?
people are going to have to pay. Yeah.
No, that's exactly it. That's why Adobe breeds a lot of resentment, because they have power and they made it so that people feel it. And they did it to the tremendous benefit of their shareholders and their stock price and all these sorts of things. And I think it was justified, but it makes them sort of, it gives them sort of, they're starting from a tough position PR wise. And my take here, just sort of my initial take, even before I get to the one that you appreciated, which I appreciate your appreciation, is if you're in this position where you have power, and not just that, you have demonstrated that you have the power, and everyone knows that you have the power, and they feel that demonstration of power every single month when the bill sort of hits their credit card statement. In that scenario, you need to be absolutely pristine clean, right? Like, don't screw around. Now, what did they screw up here? Like I said, I think the options are fairly clear, but it is almost impossible to find out what that termination fee is. You have to dig through multiple links. You have to get down. It only says 50%. You have to calculate that in your head. That is like what the actual number is. I think if they had just put on there that, look, you're canceling, put it right up there, 50% cancellation fee of, in like put $300 or whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
would they get fewer people clicking the wrong option, right? Would they get people that came to their senses and said, I don't actually need Photoshop, let me go find alternatives? Yes, they would probably lose some customers. Are those customers you actually need in the long run? Are those customers that are trying to be cheap, that are trying to, or that don't understand what's going on, or whatever the sort of categorization is? And knowing that the outcome is they're just filled with rage because they suddenly got a $300 charge that they
Right.
didn't expect coming, or they thought that they could get around from. Like, what's the gain here? And you can understand how this happens in a sort of incentive based, KPI based, A/B testing culture. Well, if we do this, we actually get more money. And the gating factor for that, everyone's like, well, what do you do about the incentive problem? What you do about the incentive problem is you just do the right thing. And
Mm-hmm.
it sounds almost like Rubesque, right? Like, just do the right thing. But there's a bit here where if someone at Adobe is like, look, who are we actually signing up by not saying the termination fee? That, like, we're getting people that don't know what they're doing, or they don't understand it, or they're trying to be cheap, and like we're this is not good money. Like, we
Right.
should not do
I
this.
think the key point is that the gains are marginal and the potential costs are meaningful, as evidenced by this lawsuit and the just sort of rising resentment that Adobe has encountered, including Adobe purchased Figma and encountered backlash all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like, did those KPIs and measurements in A/B testing that probably drove this particular design include the risk of being sued by the FTC?
Right.
Probably not, right? But there's always a ton of stuff that can't be measured, and I think I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's a hard thing to write as a business analyst, because you want to have something that's actionable and what's an incentive you can form. You can't, as a manager, manufacture incentives for everything, right? There's too many
Mm-hmm.
things that might happen in the world. If you could, then central planning would work, and it doesn't, right? And so you need this sort of core culture and fabric of sort of doing the right thing. And I drew an analogy here to Apple in the App Store, right? Like, we talked on the last episode about the fact that Apple is in a situation where they need developers for the Vision Pro, and they especially need developers for Apple Intelligence to really make it sing, to make it live up to its potential. And they don't have good vibes with developers these days because of their App Store policies, which,
Mm-hmm.
one of the frustrations of writing about the App Store over the years was, once I sort of dug into the law and understood, look, what Apple is doing is perfectly legal. Your kind of response to Apple is, Apple, yes, you can do this, but it's not the right thing to do. You got to chill out a little bit. You need to soften your rhetoric. You need to give some grace to small developers, not go chasing the random, SaaS app that I can't point to an incentive structure you can put in as a manager to get people to do the right thing. What I can say, though, is doing the right thing is important, and it pays off in the full arc of time. And I think
Mm-hmm.
this example is a good one. Like, I don't think Adobe broke the law that egregiously. I think the FTC overstates their case. I saw the cancellation bit, but it does say clear and conspicuous terms, and they buried the hell out of that early termination fee. As far as the
Yeah.
law is written, I think it's a pretty black and white case. And to what end? To what end?